Sitaram, welcome to SWA DHARMA, carried exclusively on Sankhya TV, coming to you as usual on Thursdays between 6:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. SWA DHARMA, where we look at concepts in Sanatana Dharma, concepts which one might add are universal in thought, and we use acknowledged references in Sanatana Dharma to guide the process. This being the program before Diwali on Wednesday 7th, 2018. So the reasons for Diwali celebration, and the first we mention here is the input of the Vaish in Sanatana Dharma. We quickly add there are 4 Varanas or 4 stratas within society: the Brahman, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya and the Shudra. Each, if they perform their duty, their respective duties, it lends to a progressive socio-economic prosperous society. The Vaishya, their role among others are to exercise fair trade practices because they fall within the ambit of merchants, dealing in commodities like food supplies, including dairy, and to ensure that important goods must be available and affordable. Now, many times we tend to think that as a Vaish, being born into the lineage of a Vaish, one has to become an agriculturist, as the case may be. Not necessarily, but as a Vaish, one ought to make concerted efforts to ensure that the duties of the Vaish are carried out and executed to the best of one's ability. Now, from the history of Sanatana Dharma, the Vaish were the ones who put forward best practice in agriculture, and they leaned much towards organic farming. There was not use of toxic chemicals. Instead, they were always used, and it still is being used, products like neem, which when drawn like the extract of a tea, acts as both an insecticide and a fungicide. Dusting cinnamon onto plants, that acts as a fungicide. And in this vein, all natural counter chemicals, countering the negatives of fungus, bacteria, etc., that harm plants, that harm or make the production of the harvest lower than the expected amount. Composting was also a practice that we are now returning to, thankfully, but these practices were all promulgated by the Vaish, and it led to a healthy harvest. Production levels were sometimes exceeded, and the entire joy of reaping a good harvest culminated in the celebration, coincided with the celebration of Diwali. So this is one of the reasons why Diwali is also attributed, the celebration of Diwali is also attributed to the input of the Vaish. And there was a lot of foresight in those practices by the Vaishyas. For instance, the rotation of crops was a common practice, a studied practice, whereby legume crops like peas, etc., were routinely introduced into the soil and enriching the soil by adding, of course, nitrogen. So these and other sound practices the Vaish maintained in times of yore, and if returned to, and we are returning to, thankfully, then we would find that the target levels for harvest would be met. Ramayana has referenced and made the point, Shash Sampan Sohamahikaisi Upakariki Sampati Jaisi. It is from the merchant class, from the Vaish, those who are into the production of food, etc. It is from this trading class that profits are accrued among all the 4 Varanas, and they really sustain good works like yagya and good noble charities and so forth. It is the Vaish who fund these projects, And Bhagwan Shri Ram Chandraji pronounced and says, he told the world through the medium of Lakshman, he says, "Oh Lakshman, look at the crops down in the valley. And the greenery of the crops beautify the earth so much. So too, the Vaish or the merchant or the tradesman should, when he or she is in a position to don onto worthwhile charitable causes, whatever he or she can afford. And that beautifies the wealth accrued, just as the greenery of the crops has now beautified the valleys below, says the Lord." And if one were to glance in that very Katha in Ramayana, in Kishkindhakand, not too long after this very interesting chaupai, Krishi Niravahi Chatur Kisana, Jimmy Buddha Tajahi Mohammed Mana. And the Lord says, clever farming produces profitable harvests, and harvests that make a population well sustained, well looked after. And the Lord says, but it calls for clever farming, that a clever farmer removes the weeds among his crops at a very early stage. He does not allow weed and crop to grow to the same size. It affects the harvest and in fact makes harvesting very difficult. And the Lord says, so too, man should copy the habits of a clever farmer, in that he or she should remove certain weeds, and they are specified here, which we'll come to, at a very early stage, lest they affect the harvest, the potential of this being of ours. And those major weeds that affect mankind, moha madmana, moha is ignorance. Ignorance is when we don't make ourselves privy and disposed to spiritual knowledge via the means of a guru, via the means of satsang, via the means of the very purohit of the home. So whatever questions we might have pertaining to spirituality, why we do this, why we don't, that should be removed at the source of the knowledge. Mud, the tendency of man to tend to stride upon the road of haught and arrogance, that has to be plucked out of the character build at a very early stage for reasons that are very obvious. And man or pride. Pride, there's a difference, there's a thin line between haught and pride. Haught is when we ensure that the things we do, think and act out and speak about, we are focused on building how our stature, pushing ourselves to a level that we want people to look at us in that light when it may not necessarily be so. Accolades have to be bestowed on a person. We don't have to work towards making these accolades happen. And man or pride is where we drop a hint here, drop a hint there, do something here, do something there, where we incite in a very covert manner people to give those accolades to us. So in haught, in mud, we do it for ourselves, which we shouldn't be doing. And in pride, man, we try to instigate that response from people, which again, we should not be doing. It should come naturally. So we come to the next renowned reason for the celebration of Diwali. And this has to do with that great King Prithu and his conversations, his interaction at one point in time with Mother Earth, Dharati Mata. King Prithu was actually a projection of the Supreme, of the Mahavishnu. And at one point in time, Mother Earth became overburdened by the evildoers, the evil perpetrators on earth. Now, we would spend just a small time on a quotation here taken from Bhagavad Puran, because there seems to be a popular misconception that King Prithu put Mother Earth under duress so that she will once more be bountiful. And if we examine that entire katha and we extrapolate from that katha, Pura Srishta Hyoshadhayo Brahmanaya Vishampate Bhujyamana Maya Drishta Asad Bhir Grita Vratayhai. And this is the important part here. Mother Earth, when she had that conversation, that interchange with King Prithu, when he asked her, why have you withheld your bounty? And she says, among other things, what I have noticed, that the Creator when he created plants and herbs that are beneficial, medicinal in value, etc., to give to the world, what I have found over the passage of time, says Mother Earth, is that people who deviated from spirituality and used every asset given to her, in fact, they misuse it, they use it aimlessly. And because of I saw that wanton wastage, I withheld my bounty. But she says, in you, Prithu, from that divine beginning of yours, I know, I'm confident that you will release me from these evil perpetrators, and once more I shall be bountiful. So having made that mutual agreement, it was not a case of one under duress. Mother Earth released her bounty, and from that day she was known as Prithvi, a name that we are very familiar with to refer to Mother Earth, having had the input and the support of Raja Prithu. Reminds us, in fact, this very reason for the celebration of Diwali, it reminds us that we have to rein in the wicked, else his history will repeat itself. We cannot get into practices where we physically defile the earth. We cannot wage practices and make them commonplace and foist these malpractices upon our fellow citizens. Because at the end of the day, ulterior damage it causes, it is Dharti Mata, Dharti meaning Dharankari, who bears us. It is she who becomes burdened. And sometimes we tend to think that, well, you know, distresses and my immediate community, my immediate family, they don't have any evil perpetrators and so forth. But malpractices and evildoers and their doings, like a virus, has a very strange way of spreading. If you were to just use a simple reference, someone might have a viral infection. They live in a totally different location, under a cardinal point in the land, 300 or 180 degrees away from us. And you know, because of the capacity and the potential of a virus to spread its effect, we may eventually become infected with that virus. So too, Mother Earth says we have to take steps. We have to make concerted efforts to sensitize those in authority. We may not be able to rectify a situation, but we need to sensitize those in authority, perpetually sensitize them, so that these malpractices would be checked at a very early stage. And by extension, that helps to relieve Mother Earth of her burdens. Mother Earth is a projection of Mother Lakshmi. There are very popular projections of Mother Lakshmi, which we sometimes overlook. There is one at the conclusion of this month, Kartik month, as known as Dakshina Devi. Possibly in one of our subsequent programs within the month of Kartik, we will touch on that. That too is a very important projection of Mother Lakshmi. Mother Earth is a projection of Mother Lakshmi. Surabhi Mata, the very first cow, is a projection of Mother Lakshmi. And we should reverently bow to her each day. You know, as we have said and demonstrated before, as we enter the prayer room, we touch, before any prayer started, we touch the earth with reverence and then touch to our forehead, recognizing Mother Earth, making obeisance to Mother Earth. And in a very puja, a conventional puja where we perform puja, whether it's the Hanuman Baba, Lakshmi Mata, Ganesh Bhagwan, whichever puja we perform, the very first deity that is worshipped is Mother Earth, Prithvi Mata, Dharti Mata, because after having consecrated her there, then we can then we are allowed to bring the other deities, including Ganesh Baba, onto the earth, onto that Vedika, onto that altar. So we come to the third major reasons for the celebration of Diwali, and that is riveted on the return of Shri Ramchandra from his voluntary exile. Remember, the destruction of Ravan was not merely the destruction of a being, but it was the destruction of his adharmic practices. That the Lord and those who profess to be divine and devotees of Bhagwan have to make steps in that direction, where we forestall any desecration of Havan. Havan being the most potent tool of any Hindu, where oblations are reverently offered into the fire. especially with the accompanying correct incantations. And once there is a blockage to that, that's where devotees have to step in. Reviling the upholders of law and order, that was another adharmic, prominent adharmic practice of Ravan. And Shri Ramchandra stepped up to it and put an end to it. And so too we have to make our efforts to abide by the law and to ensure that those around us also stay within the ambit of the law. And it was not a case of a special intervention of the Lord. He works in mysterious ways. He answers the very call of the devotee. From the inception of that call, the Lord answers, and it's referenced here. Ravan secured boons from Brahma and Bhagwan Shiva, the creator and dissolver. And the gods themselves cannot recall their gifts. That's a quotation popularly made by W.H. Auden, one of our contemporary poets. The gods themselves, and I quote, cannot recall their gifts. So Bhagwan Shiva, in his projected form as Hanuman, not as Shiva, he was able to first engage Ravan in dialogue, to desist from his malpractices, to return the abducted Sita Mata. And Ravan did not accede to the request. And Hanuman, as we know from the Katha, the history of the Katha, he burnt Lanka. And if one follows Dashagriva Sadarpaha, the 12 revered names of Bhagwan Hanuman, we have just quoted the last line, he who quelled the pride of Ravan by burning Lanka before Ravan's very eyes. It is said, the scholars have said, that was the beginning of the fall of Ravan. So even though Ravan and the evildoers are secured by their spiritual practices from time to time, once they begin to make mankind and the environment uncomfortable, the gods step in. And in the case of Ravan, Shiva himself stepped in before Shri Ramchandraji bore the eventual demise of Ravan. And before that fall of Ravan, remember when the Lord volunteered himself into 14 years exile, it was upon the 14th year, did the world have to stand by and wait on the Lord's intervention? Katina Biko Ramayan, Katina Bhumi Komal Pargami, Kamna Hetu Vana Bicharu Swami. When Shri Ramchandra was met by Hanuman, Hanuman being the envoy of Sugriv, the minister of Sugriv, Sugriv asked Hanuman to interview these two beings whom at that point in time he did not recognize. And one of the statements made by Hanuman in his interchange with the Lord, he asked, he says, why are you wandering in the forest? So he called him Swami. He recognized that is the Lord incarnate. They had spent some time together in his youthful days. And he says, you, and Hanuman pointed, you who are barefooted. Now Mother Earth was the one who initially came seeking the rescue of the Lord. And we heard from in Balkand that aerial voice pronounced that he, the Mahavishnu, will come in the household of Dasharat as Ram, and he will attend to her concerns by the destruction of Ravan. But what happened in the interim? He, Prithvi Mata, gave or was received the very touch of the lotus-like feet of Prabhu Ramchandraji for a protracted period, almost the full 14 years, until the demise, the Waterloo of Ravan was spelt out. And that is the compassion of the Lord. Sometimes we're looking for miracles, so the miracles are happening. Mother Earth, in other words, got the physical touch of the Lord for that length of time, almost a full 14 years, something which the rishis and munis hanker after. She got it. She got a comfort. She got a touch of the Lord until her prayer was finally answered. And that is the compassion. And that was the celebration that continued towards Divali. So it is this divine, sublime display of the Lord when upon his victorious return to Ayodhya, the grandeur of that return expressed itself by diyas being lit throughout the streets of Ayodhya, and the momentum of that joyous occasion carried itself right up until Diwali. Let's examine the actual return of the Lord. Krishna Saptami Madhava Masa Sabake Man Ati Bhayo Hulasa. When did the Lord return? In the month of Madhava, which is Vaishak, which is approximately April. When is Diwali? Approximately October, November, months away. So the physical return of the Lord did not coincide with the date of Diwali, but rest assured that the momentum of his victory over Ravan, of his restoration of Dharma, was celebrated on, day after day, night after night, until it built into, as we have said before, a crescendo on the day of Diwali, which is the coming of Mother Lakshmi, which is the coming of the very embodiment of light. Reason number 4 for the celebration of Diwali, it commemorated the destruction of Narakasura. Bhagwan Krishna in his incarnated form destroyed the Rakshas not on Diwali day, but on the day before Diwali, the Chaturdashi. Diwali is celebrated on the Amavasya, the full moon day, the new moon day, sorry. And that victory of good over evil carried itself and pinnacled and on the celebration of Diwali. The Lord has his ways of showing his prowess and power. He physically did it with Narakasura, and then he sat back as a silent, or not as silent, but as a non-participating observer, and still wielded his divine power because he's just a charioteer. No part of the 18-day epic battle of the Mahabharata between the wicked side, the Kauravas, and the good side, the Pandavas. So he stayed there just as a charioteer. So he was not proactive as in the case of Narakasura, but his divinity, that power of his divine form and presence expressed itself by the advice he gave to the Pandavas, chief of them being his most ardent friend Arjun. And there, although the wicked side had access to all the modern missiles and so forth, all the potent missiles, they were unable to conquer those who were on God's team, even though he was a silent observer. And that is this, and for other reasons, we realize that it has also been expressed in the celebration of Diwali in India. Of the 5 days of Diwali, which we'll be touching on briefly, this is the major celebration. They celebrate Narak Chaturdashi, which will be on Tuesday, 6th November this year, acknowledging that Diwali is on Wednesday, 7th November 2018. But the thrust of their joy and celebration is on the Narak Chaturdashi. Reason number 5 for the celebration of Diwali, and in one round of creation, this very day, the Chaturdashi day, the day before Diwali, Sri Hanuman incarnated on it. I know we are accustomed to knowing that, we are familiar with the fact that he came the full moon following the advent of the Lord as Sri Ram in the month of Chaitra. But in one round of creation, he came, Hanumanji incarnated. And we reference the holy texts. We talk about Vayu Puran, and Vayu Puran may Kartik Krishna Chaturdashi, in the month of Kartik, in the 14th phase of the moon, Sri Hanuman ji ke Janma ka ullekh hai. And we give the Sanskrit quotation there. So yet another reason to celebrate the incarnation of Hanuman. Hanuman, who is the one who helps us to rebound. In sport, we hear the cliche, the comeback kid. That male or female who, having suffered either an emotional setback or physical injury, came back to be victorious. And that is the input of Hanuman, which we need to celebrate perpetually, because we all take falls in life, emotionally, physically, and otherwise. And the ability to rebound is through Hanuman's grace. So yet another reason to celebrate Diwali, yet another reason to herald the incarnation of Sri Hanuman in one round of creation. So as we are in the 5 days of Diwali, it's worthwhile mentioning the 2 tithis, the 13 tithis, the Trayodashi, before the Amavasya of Diwali. 2 days before, or 2 tithis before, as we say, the Lord incarnated as Dhanvantari Bhagwan. He is the Lord. He came to re-establish the purpose and use and beneficial uses of medicine to the world, the Lord of medicine. This is in his 24th stool avatar. In each round of creation, Dhanvantari is the 12th incarnation. He came out of the churning of the ocean, the same way that the halahal, that great potent poison of Shiva, came out, the same way that Lakshmi Mata came out. So they both, Dhanvantari Bhagwan and Lakshmi Mata, were products of the churning of the ocean, one on the 13th phase and one on the 15th phase. And so it is always, this is the beginning of the 5 great days of Diwali. the Dhanteras. This year, it will be Monday the 5th of November 2018, especially around sunset time. We get together as a family, and if we don't have a murti of Dhanvantari Bhagwan, we can perform puja, even the 5 forms of puja to Dhanvantari Bhagwan, because Tulsi represents as a good arm for its medicinal purposes. An interesting point, Jamdia, as we say in dialect, it's really Yamdia. We say Yagya, but then in dialect we say Jag. When is the Yamdia lit? It is not lit the day before Diwali. Quotation. And we are quoting Nirnay Sindhu here, law book. And it says on the Krishna Trayodashi, on the 13th phase of the moon, 2 lunar days before the moon. So Diwali is on Wednesday the 7th November. Dhanteras is Monday the 5th of November. 2 days. And the quote is here. And it says here now that कार्तिक कृष्ण पक्ष की त्रयोदशी के निशामुख में घर के बाहर outside यम का दीपक, along with performing Dhanvantari Puja, there is this special mantra giving here Mrityuna Pashadandabhyam. That special mantra we accord and seek the blessings of Yamraj on that day where we puja Dhanvantari Bhagwan, that he may forestall any untimely death. So the Yamdiya is an accompaniment of the Dhanteras Puja. And it is done not the day before Diwali, 2 days before Diwali, as far as the moon phases are concerned. So we now come to the 6th and final acclaimed reason for the celebration of Diwali, and that is the axis of that is the advent of Mother Lakshmi into the world. And of the blessings of Mother Lakshmi, this is the one we need to focus on, Unnati or prosperity. She is the one, Mother Lakshmi's grace is the one who fires the student to advance, to progress in his or her educational life, to move, to give the drive, to move to do the necessary studies, to move from primary to secondary, then to tertiary level. She is the one, Mother Lakshmi's blessings, her Unnati is the one who helps or inspires the householder, who fires the householder towards working and providing a comfort zone for their offspring, for their family, for their children. Because many times from a comfort zone, genius is born. And so Mother Lakshmi's input goes on there. Then we have the Vanprast, when we have advanced in years, and there should be an appreciation of that, or he who is immortal, and begin to unleash or unlock the shackles of paying attention and making mere mortals the focus of our attention. Not that we'll negate all mortals, but the attention shifts to that. And then Sannyasi, she is the one who gives the intrigue that, listen, there is a hereafter, and there should be more efforts honed in on to make preparation for the hereafter. The tithi, or the phase of the moon, is dictated by the movement of the moon over 12 degrees. So by a simple distance over time gives speed, one can work out by moving a distance of 12 degrees how long it takes the moon, and that is a tithi. And if we look at the Earth's position, the lines of longitude represents time difference on Earth. That has nothing to do with the movement of the moon. And lines of latitude dictate sunrise. That has nothing to do with the movement of the moon. So when we take the time moved by the moon for 12 degrees and transfix it as far as how it affects Earth, all that is necessary is the length of time is taken according to sunrise. So there is not an issue of where we are and who is celebrating when a day before. No, it's not that at all. That's why for this year, everyone east and west of our country, Trinidad and Tobago, is celebrating on Wednesday, 7th November 2018, because they appreciate it's just the length of the tithi transfixed on their geographical location with just a tweak, minutes of the sunrise difference. So the finishing time will be just mildly affected, but we'll all incorporate sunset of the 15th phase of the moon. Once more, we thank you for joining us on Sankhya TV. Have a blessed Diwali, and by Lakshmi Mata's grace, we meet and greet on our next Thursday. Sitaram.